Hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar today about Priority's new release, version 22.1. I'm Nicole Lipper, a product manager here at Priority, and we're here to go over the main highlights of our newest Priority ERP release that was officially released on October 11th, just a little while ago. I'll also take this opportunity to share with you some of our plans for the upcoming versions. Now, if you want to see all of the new features that this release has to offer beyond what we chose to show you today, you're more than welcome to check the official release notes on our expert site. So during the webinar, you can write down your questions inside the webinar chat box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer your questions as we move through the presentation. At the end of the webinar, I'll review all of your questions and answer any new questions that weren't addressed during the session, or those that I think are relevant for everyone to hear. So thank you all for being here today, and let's get started. During the presentation, you are going to witness some of our plans for upcoming releases, as I said. It's important for you to be aware of these features, but it's also important for me to state that these are our plans for the time being, and we can't promise that any of the features that you hear about today will be, in fact, a part of a future release. So the new age of ERP understands today that one size fits none, which means that each company and each user wants to have a system that's customized to their specific needs. Priority allows us, actually the users, to teach it on one hand, and on the other hand, studies the user's usage patterns using smart AI capabilities and recommends a personalized ERP experience. In the previous version, version 22.0, we already showed you some of these smart capabilities. On the teaching priority side, we saw tools like the Automation Hub and the new onboarding experience. On the Priority Teaches Us side, we saw tools that enable automatic personalization of our workspace. We saw how the system recommends adding widgets to our homepage for frequently used actions, and how the system recommends changing the order in which actions are organized on our screen based on our usage, or the ability to hide sublevels that we don't use. In version 22.1, we continued to add more personalization features, and that's what I'd like to show you right now. So as we said, we have two sides. On the Priority Teaches Us side, each one of us has their top searches that they usually perform. Sometimes we enter a form and we look for the same thing over and over again. For example, as you see here on the screen, an example could be all the sales orders from the beginning of the year that are in a certain status. So one of the new insights that Priority has offers now is that the system recommends to save your top searches, and even recommends saving that search in a way that it will automatically be initiated every time you enter the form. On the teaching priority side, we added the ability to choose the branch you are working from, which is extremely useful for organizations that have multiple branches. The user can now choose their current branch, and that will affect the way the branch is filled out in documents in the system and the relevant input in programs and reports that the users run. Digging a little deeper into personalization, I'd like to share with you another smart feature that we built especially for our users again. So those of you who use Priority know that one of Priority's strengths has always been the ability to zoom in from one place to another. So now we added the ability to see all the data that you need right here and now without the need to zoom to any other place. So continuing our example from before, let's say I was in the sales order form, we added a little eye icon, as you can see right here, to certain fields. In this example, it's the customer field. And you can use it to get more info using this new panel that jumps up when you press the icon. Now, using Priority's smart AI capabilities, we know where our users zoom into in the system. So as you can see here in the panel on the screen, we show you all the important information that you need when you need it in the same view. And you don't have to go anywhere. So in this example, we see the customer's contacts or other financial data such as the obligo. Now, of course, you can easily customize this panel and even add private fields. So this is very, very useful. And in the future, using these same AI capabilities, we are going to show each user their specific fields that they usually zoom into, and that is in addition to those that are most relevant to users. Moving on to some ERP features, and let's start with finance. As you know, in every version, we support regulations and we add functionality for our customers around the world. So in this version, for our European customers, we expanded support for the plastic packaging tax, to fulfill the regulation requirements for additional EU countries. We also added new infrastructure for managing Intrastrat and EC sales codes in a flexible way that allows users to pre-configure them. And in the expense invoice report work area, we added the option to define a tax group. So when opening an invoice, the default part number of the tax group is recorded instead of the general part number, allowing for multiple tax rates in invoices that are originated from the expense work area. In Belgium, we added validation for typing the value in the OGM field in vendor invoices. In Italy, we now support the frequent exporter rolling plafond calculation on a monthly basis. So customers working with frequent exporters can now also define expiration dates on tax-exempt protocols and transmit them with the e-invoice as required by tax regulations. We also added support for creating an F24 file in a format ready for sending to the tax authorities. In Italy, we now support the frequent exporter rolling plafond. As I said, in Portugal, we added support for digital signatures for customer return documents and SAFT reporting, including signature details. We have a new localization in Poland. This localization is sold and implemented and supported by a partner in Poland that is named Integris. Of course, we also support regulations and best practices in Israel too. I won't go into all of the new regulatory features, of course, but I will point out two of them that may be relevant. In 22.1, we added the ability to create a fund benefits attachment to Form 161 in the system, and we support the digital transmission of the Army Reserve Duty form to national insurance. I just want to tell you a little bit about what to expect in the future. In the US, we're planning an integration with a payroll software, apparently ADP. In the UK, we are planning on digital banking, similar to what we already have here in Israel. And we are also planning to start our first steps in expanding to the Far East. We're going to do this by adding functionality to support special rounding needs in countries like Japan and Korea and Taiwan. We're not talking about full localization, but rather an infrastructure for rounding that's customary in these territories. And in Italy, we're planning support withholding tax report generation in alignment with Certificazione Unica. So priority payments, our payment solution, continues to expand as more and more customers join us. We added the option to register to use additional payment methods directly from within Priority as well. We also now transmit data level 2 and data level 3 to increase the success rate for credit card transactions. Talking a little bit about what's next, our future plans include continuing to enrich priority payments with more payment methods like Apple Pay, for instance. Companies that wish to do so will be able to let their end customers partially pay invoices via Click to Pay and the payments portal. And there are some more planned features that are relevant to Israel only, so I won't get into them at this point. So Priority's innovative reconciliation work areas, as you can see here on the right screen, Provide the most effective reconciliation experience. Now, just 1 second before we go into the new features, I want to invite whoever hasn't done so to progress to our innovative reconciliation experience for banks, accounts, and credit cards. So going back to version 22.1, now you will be able to show more fields on each side of the work area using the form design here. There is automation set place for calculating a discrepancy remainder for when the user wants to record a reconciliation transaction with a discrepancy amount and split it between several accounts. Also, in order to make editing temporary reconciliations easier, when you edit a reconciliation on one side of the work area, the lines with the same reconciliation number on the other side will pop up to the head of the work area. I just want to state that for those of you who don't remember or don't know, all of our customers are gradually going to be transitioned to the new innovative reconciliation work areas. This process has already started for Zoom customers and will move on to priority customers as well. Supply chain. This new version 22.1 feature is called ATP, available to promise. It will allow to answer questions right out of the sales order line. The questions are, is it possible to provide the ordered quantity on the requested date? If not, what is the actual date that I can provide the ordered quantity by? Now, this feature is very helpful for sales processes because you can quickly check that the available to promise, and if the supply isn't available, you will know the earliest date in which you can supply it. Now, all of these results are based on the previous MRP run, and they also take into account previous ATP checks. For companies that provide commission to 2 sales reps per sale, we added an additional sales rep to sales documents. Of course, Priority sales rep commission mechanism calculates the second sales rep's commission. We also added more options for commission calculation. So from now on, you can decide that the sales rep's commission will be calculated according to the price before discount or the profit, in addition to the already existing possibility for it to be calculated according to the price after discount. You can also define whether the commission will participate in profit calculation of the document or not, and also choose how the second sales rep's commission will be calculated in comparison to the first sales rep. Our integration with ShipEngine that allows our customers in countries like North America, Australia, and the UK to ship goods using shippers that we all know, like UPS, FedEx, and more, have had some new abilities added to it. So first of all, we now support customs for shipping between different countries. Companies can use their own boxing solutions in addition to the boxes offered by the carriers. You can now define addresses as residential or commercial because it may influence the shipping cost. And for distributed organizations, you can define the sending address by the sending warehouses. Most of you are probably familiar with approval lists in Priority. These approval lists allow having a round of approval in order to approve documents in the system. So just going back a little, in recent releases, we focused on creating a unified experience for all the approval lists in the system so that all the forms have approval lists. They will behave exactly the same way, visually and functionality-wise. We added more functionality as well. We added approval lists to more forms. Going back to version 22.1, which is the new version, users can now approve documents in an approval list directly out of their email, in addition to the already existing option to do it in Priority, of course. So as you see here on the screen, the user received an email. They can click on the approve or the reject buttons to actually approve or reject the document. And this, of course, will automatically update Priority without the user having to work in the system at all. In this version, we also added the ability to set up approval lists using roles and not only usernames. So for example, a company that works with projects or branches can now define the role, and then the request for approval will be automatically sent to the role holder in the specific project or the specific branch. Also, the system can now automatically choose the proper approval list according to the data in the document. So for instance, you can define that if we're talking about the northern branch and the request type is office supplies, then the approval list that will automatically be filled in the document is approval number 5, for example. The rental module that supports businesses that rent out equipment is continuing to accelerate. And in version 22.1, we now offer 2 new features. We offer to bill rentals before they begin and to define index-linked prices. In the next versions, we're going to give you an overview of all income and expenses of a rented serialized part. So aside from what we chose to show you on today's webinar, there are plenty of things that we do that are a result of your feedback from the field. Now, if we take a second to zoom out and look at the big picture, I can tell you that in version 22.1, a total of forwarded wanted functionality items from a total of 330 customers were taken care of. You can see a glimpse here on the bottom of some of the things that you asked for and that were developed. For example, we added product bundles to shipping documents and invoices. We added support for vendor bonuses for parts and parts families, which is similar to what exists today in the sales module. So I won't go into a lot of detail, but I do want you to take from here that your feedback matters and continue sending us feedback from the field. Platform. We added a user verification option to the business rules mechanism. So now you can define that when a certain condition is met, a message will be received requiring the user to re-enter their password. So let me give you a few examples so you can understand how to use this new feature. This feature will let you make sure that the user that's making the update is actually the user with the permission to do so. So an example could be when changing the status of the part, you can now confirm that the person that is logged in is actually the person making the status change. Another example could be that when changing bank account details for suppliers, the user must re-enter their password to confirm that they are in fact the ones that are making the change. As of version 22.1, we added a new way to connect to the system from outside. This is in addition to Web SDK, REST API. It allows access to data that's found in the application layer according to the form structure. This new connector is called ODBC. It allows for reading data using SQL commands from every client that works with ODBC. This solution is very useful when a company wishes to quickly read large amounts of data from Priority. This is helpful when working with third-party systems, like for instance, BI systems. And moving on, think of 2 companies that have a trading relationship. Let's say one is a customer and one is the customer supplier. These companies today can use the MDM, Master Data Management tool, to automatically generate the commerce documents with one another, no matter which installation or version they are in. From now on, the interface got a lot more flexible, and you can even transfer data from standard fields in one company to private fields in the other company. In the future, we are even planning on providing pre-built packages for companies that don't wish to install the module and configure the interfaces, but rather to have everything ready in advance. Okay, I'd like to invite Lior Bart, our CTO, in order to talk to you a little bit about AWS.
Thank you, Nicole. Great stuff. Great job. Well done.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. So hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our migration to AWS. AWS stands for Amazon Web Services. Sure, everyone has heard of them. Biggest public cloud provider and most well-known globally. And over the past couple of months, we've been doing a lot of work in migrating our AWS setup and our SaaS setup to use the modern AWS services. Okay, so a little bit about our SaaS. Just, I'm sure everyone is already familiar, but I'll just go through the main pillars of the SaaS service that we provide. So we're managing pretty much everything. We're managing the performance, the scalability, we're managing the security. We're doing the same for high availability, we're taking care of the disaster recovery. We're upgrading the SaaS environments twice a year. And we have a team of engineers who are proactively managing, monitoring, and alerting these the service. Now, this has been going on for years. We've been doing it for years. What's changed is that we're using AWS services in a much different way than we've been doing before. So, as you know, AWS offer a huge range of managed services, right? These are the core ones. There's about 20 of them on the slide. But last time I counted, there are over 300 managed services that are offered by AWS. And what we've been doing is we've started using them much more significantly than what we've done before. So until now, right, the SaaS service that we've provided for our global customers uses pretty much only Amazon EC2 and Amazon VPC, that's it. Pretty much we're using AWS as a provider of virtual machines and installing priority on these machines and managing them for you, across the dimensions that I described earlier. So what we've been doing for the past couple of months is we've been deepening our usage of these managed services, significantly in a significant way. And all of this in order to provide the services and the managed features that I described in a better way. And in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to be describing a couple of the managed services that we've adapted and how we use them in order to provide a better SaaS service. So let's jump into it. Let's start with the availability zones. AWS has a bunch of data centers, or like what they call regions. We're globally deployed. There's 20 or so of these regions deployed globally, a couple on every continent. Now, each region is divided in what they call availability zones. So what's an availability zone? So an availability zone, it sounds like maybe something like small. It's not small at all. A single availability zone is actually a huge, it's a huge data center. Including everything that's needed in order to maintain that data center and keep it running. It's networking, it's power, it's cooling, it's thousands or I don't know how many physical servers that are running inside that availability zone. But a region is always made up of multiple availability zones, and that is done for the reason of keeping the data highly available, not only the data, but also the services that are built on top of that data. So we use two new services, new AWS services. You can see their names here on the top, and it's the same for all the slides. We're using the FSX for Windows File Server and Simple Storage Service, in short, S3, in order to save all of the priority data, be it the database data, right, the tabular data stored in the database, or it could be the attachments that are attached to the various documents inside priority. All of this data is automatically, using these two services, it's automatically replicated to multiple availability zones, again, to make sure that the data is always available and that the service is or continues to serve even in the event of of an entire availability zone going down. Right? We understand it's a really rare event, but it happens, and we want to make sure that even when an availability zone, when a single data center availability zone goes down, we can continue to provide the service. So we do that, and the way that we do it is using these two servers and all of that in order to maintain high availability and to maintain our SLAs. Okay, so that's regarding the availability. Let's talk a little bit about performance. Performance, really important to priority users, as it should be. We don't want to sit around waiting for our report to be generated or for our document to be finalized, right? So for that, we are utilizing the Amazon Global Network. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the global network. So you see this, the map of the world here. These orange circles, these are the regions. The regions are, as I described before, they're a group of availability zones or data centers connected between them, but also between the regions, excuse me, there's a really fast and robust networking system that is set up in between the regions. This network extends not only between the regions, but also from the regions to hundreds of edge locations around the world. Now, this is to make sure that any data that is communicated over the network, we want it to be inside the global Amazon network as much as possible, right? We don't want to depend on local networks as little as possible on local ISPs. You know, we want to depend as much as we can on the Amazon network, which is really robust and really fast. So all of these edge locations are actually portals in which the data which is flowing between the data center, the server, and the end user, really it goes through these portals as quickly as possible, and from there it's on the global highway, on Amazon's global highway, hundreds of terabits of deployed capacity, and it's a really robust backbone, just so that the communication will be not only robust but also fast. We understand the importance of it. It's important that we measure this and we monitor it constantly. The names of the services that we use, you can see here in the corner, it's the Route 53 and the Amazon CloudFront. These are the ones that ensure that the networking is fast and robust. Moving on to scalability. Scalability means that the service doesn't slow down when the usage grows, right? So on an on-prem installation, there are certain cases which say a user ran some kind of maybe a heavy report, which is taking up the entire all of the CPUs on the server. When that happens, other users are impacted. This cannot happen in a scalable architecture. So I'm not going to go too deeply into it. Just like a high level, we use two technologies in order to enhance the scalability. They're called containers and Kubernetes. They're actually built one on top of the other. The containers is an isolated way and a standard way of deploying applications, right, in a kind of a closed system, which is called a container. This container includes all of the code needed to run the application, again, in a standardized way. And it's used similar to the way that shipping containers are used, you know, to ship stuff around the world. Really, what enables a lot of the global supply chain is these containers, these standardized containers that can be stacked one on top of the other. So we've actually containerized the priority application server so that it can be stacked in this way. Once we have priority packaged as a container, what the next level does, the Kubernetes, it does the orchestration. Orchestration means making sure that all of the containers are up and running, making sure that they are all they have enough resources in order to manage the load, and it also knows how to notice that new resources are necessary. All of this is done automatically. So when Kubernetes notices that that all of the deployed containers are really busy, and in order to maintain scalability and the service, we need more, Kubernetes knows how to automatically reach out to the AWS infrastructure and to deploy some additional new servers, CPUs and memory, whatever is needed to provision these servers. And then it loads these containers automatically onto the new server, right? And all of this is done without a human being in the process at all, right? All of this, the purpose of this is that the end user continues to use the system without any kind of a slowdown. It's not only for performance, right? If anything happens to one of the containers, if it crashes or something like that, which happens from time to time, again, Kubernetes knows how to jump in and provision new containers just so that the service can continue to be provided. Again, all of this is done completely automatically. The service that we use in order to offer this is called Amazon EKS. It stands for the Elastic Kubernetes Services, and it works really well. Security, no need to elaborate on the importance of security. A lot of malicious actors out there trying to stop us from doing getting our work done, trying to make money on top of the different vulnerabilities. And we are really aware of this, and we do a lot in order to prevent it. Security, really, it's important. Our organizational data is really our most important asset. So in order to improve security, we use a bunch of services. I'm not going to go into all of them. One of them is called Amazon Guard Duty. What Amazon Guard Duty does, it goes through the different multitude of data sources. These can be, for instance, the network logs, every single packet that is going in or going out or going between the different services. It's examined, and a bunch of threat detection algorithms are applied on net packets, right? So it's a bunch of data sources. You can see them here, and then there's two different detection types that are used on top on this data. First is threat intelligence. These are kind of business rules for detecting commonly used threats like Bitcoin mining, command and control, etc. The second one doesn't use standard business rules, hard-coded business rules. It's just a machine learning algorithm that knows how to detect any kind of unusual behavior because of threats that maybe we understand a bit less, but they do change the pattern of the way that data is flowing in between the services. This is immediately detected by the service, and then it's surfaced to us as the traffic light, three different colors. Red means that it's a critical alert. Green means that maybe it's okay, right? All of these are monitored constantly by our engineers, and we react to them really quickly just to make sure that the service continues to be available and secure. I'll also say that we really like security standards, makes stuff really easy when communicating the level of security. So the one that we like the most is our SOC compliance. SOC or SOC 2. It's an external compliance auditor that comes in once a year and really takes a deep look at the way that our services are deployed and the way that they're secured, really going into the minutest details of it, and then providing a report, a standardized report describing how the various security mechanisms that we use and how they comply with the various guidelines required by SOC. This report is available by request to all of our customers. So I talked a bit about the operational aspects of our migration to AWS, but I didn't talk about anything functional. So I'm going to fix that right now. It's not only operational improvements, it's also functional improvements. And one of them that I would like to discuss is what we call our Files API. This is a new way of integrating priority with external systems. I'll take for an example a simple integration in which data needs to be generated by priority and then loaded into an external system. So we already have, sorry, the two mechanisms that are well known. We have the REST API, web services, which can be used for this. And we have the ODBC, which Nicole described before. The third way is using actual physical files, right? We have a way of exporting data from priority as files, physical files. These are saved on the server as regular files. And the moment that this file exists on the server in the system load folder, it's immediately exposed to the external world. Could be an on-prem application that needs this data. It could be another SaaS application that needs this data. It can be automatically pulled by this external system using SFTP protocol. It's a standard protocol for transferring files between servers. It's secure and it's standardized. There's a million tools that know how to transfer files using this the SFTP protocol. So all of this is the data is immediately available to any SFTP client, and it goes both ways. You can also load data into Priority using the same mechanism, upload them to the server, to the service using SFTP, and then using Priority standard tools, load them into the database and do whatever business functionality is needed. This is immediately available, and we're happy to offer it to any existing customer who is on our SaaS. So that's it pretty much. It's really just the tip of the iceberg of the way that we're using Amazon services in our new SaaS architecture. And I would like to pass the control back to Nicole. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lior.
Pleasure.
So going back to our presentation today, I want to refer to any questions that you may have asked. I am going to take a minute to look at the webinar chat box to see which questions you asked that may be relevant for everyone. So bear with me here for a second, and I will answer your questions very soon. Okay. So one question here has to do with AWS. There's a question about private developments. So the way you would go about private developments is exactly the way you do it normally. The only difference is that you'd be on the web interface. Let me check here for some more questions that can be relevant for everyone. Okay, another question here has to, another question about AWS. When are the upgrades? Okay, so the upgrades are at a minimum of once a year. About a month before the intended upgrade, we will send the customers an upgraded environment, a test environment to do all the business checks on. And as soon as they confirm that everything is okay, then we will do the actual upgrade. I see that those are all the questions that are kind of relevant for everyone. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining me, and have a good day.